CPULT stands for Continuous Productive Urban Landscape, and it is quite a bulky title, and we have heard this often before, but it stands for exactly what it says. It's an urban landscape, a landscape that happens within a city or a town, and a landscape that is continuous, so you could walk it from one end of the city to another end, without being interrupted by obstacles. And above all, it is a productive landscape, and we look at this idea of productivity in a variety of senses and would speak of environmental productivity, social productivity and economic productivity.
It's this linking of green spaces that's key. First, the sepals change the city from one urban zone, punctured by pockets of green, into a number of separate urban ecosystems, each with the best possible access for both wildlife and humans to green corridors. So in a way, each sector starts to function not unlike one of Howard's garden cities. But just as importantly, sepals connect right through to the countryside. This not only allows both wildlife and humans to migrate into, through and out of the city, but also provides an essential psychological fix. Even in the most built-up area, you're only ever a step away from the countryside. Now, I have a hunch that Leeds might be the ideal city for road testing what must be the most urban idea yet. I well remember my first ever lecture in landscape architecture 35 years ago, here in what was then Leeds Polytechnic. The tutor explained that Leeds was shaped like a cartwheel with spokes of green running right into the city centre, something borne out by the council's own designation of multifunctional green space.
We also want to look at everyday uses of that landscape in a productive way, and these could be sports facilities, or there could be leisure facilities, or there could be outdoor offices. Maybe also one major aspect for which that continuity is important is the idea of a transport network, so you could cycle that landscape or you could walk it. All of that makes it a productive landscape.
Those are, of course, all activities that landscape architects and managers are very used to organising.
Looking backwards, the open space agenda in cities was to do with amenity and recreation, to some extent access. This is now broadening. Energy will be a significant matter and water will be a significant matter. I think we have to add to this food.
So now the challenge is to introduce low-impact food production without compromising the other priorities. And there are more places to do that than you might think.
Starting inside the house on the windowsill, going outside onto the window ledge, the window box, going out into the concrete yards, doing backyards, front yards, looking at gardens. We're also exploring using bits of unused space, be they formerly public open space or development sites and so on. There is the grounds of schools, there is the grounds of all other buildings within the urban area.
There's community gardens, allotment sites, rooftop gardening, railway embankments, leftover spaces, traffic roundabouts, brownfield sites. It would hopefully take up parts of well-established parks. A big inner urban park could give up portions and develop a food growing landscape in the same way as they might have a rose garden already.
Open spaces in cities have to be owned by their communities, not necessarily literally, but owned and managed and owned in your head by communities. To do that, they have to be productive. And food is going to be a key part of that.
Of course, this is not only about homegrown veg. There will be commercial market gardens and new types of horticulture and agriculture too. So, bearing that in mind, how much of a city can we realistically hope to feed with sepals?
We did calculations very early on, and we confirmed them several times later that if you were to use existing open space in a contemporary British city, meaning you're not knocking down any buildings, you just use what you have, then you could feed about 30% of the population, or you could feed older population a third of their fruit and vegetable requirements.
1/3? That's a lot. Well, this circle represents the average area of Leeds, so 1/3 of the city's population could in theory be fed by introducing sepals here. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that if we draw an outer circle enclosing an area twice the size of the inner one, the rest of the population could be fed from within that zone. It looks hopeful, doesn't it? And this is nice too. The outer circle is about the same size as Howard's. So in spite of the population increase and the fact that Howard was dealing with a greenfield site, the social city is still relevant today.
The overall concept then is for green space within cities to be productive. We all know how much food contributes to global warming. It's substantial. So the idea of a city that produces its own food, it not only has the benefits in terms of just its carbon profile, it has benefits in terms of the way people can contribute to the management of their own spaces. So instead of jobs related to food happening somewhere else in the world or in the country, it means that the jobs are on your doorstep. And the idea of internalising economies within cities, I think, is a very, very important one, and food can definitely be part of that, the food economy within the city.
Of course, there is a precedent for all this. When the collapse of the Soviet Union cut the supply lines to Cuba's huge oil-dependent farms, the country faced starvation. But within a few years, new small organic farms and pocket-sized urban market gardens were feeding the population and providing healthy local cooperative employment. So it can be done.